Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about translating expressions and equations through real-world problems, so word problems. So let's take a look at our first example. There's a couple different things that we're going to do as we work through these word problems. First, we're going to do something called define the variable. It's basically where we're going to pick a variable and then we're going to tell what it's representing. And then we're going to go through and we're going to identify some key math words. And those are the words that are going to tell us what operations we're using. Then we'll write our equation and then we'll solve. All right, so first, a pizza shop charges $9 for a large cheese pizza. Additional toppings cost $1.25 per topping. Heather paid $15.25 for her large pizza. How many toppings did she order? Set up an equation and solve. All right, to define our variable, let's go back to the question. How many toppings did she order? Right there's our unknown. All right, so let's pick a variable. So I'm going to pick t to represent the number of toppings. And again, it can be any variable, doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answer here. A lot of times people will pick a letter that starts the word that we're missing, okay, or that we need to find. So t for the number of toppings. All right, let's go back up and look for some key words that are going to help us figure out what it is that we need to do. So the first keyword, or one of the keywords we came across, was the word per. Okay, $1.25 per topping. That means that we have to multiply. Okay? So remember, we don't know the number of toppings, so right there is where our variable is going to go. It's $1.25 times the number of toppings. Okay? Another one is additional. So here we have that keyword additional. So additional toppings, well, we're going to add. All right, so over here, the pizza shop charges $9 for a large cheese pizza. $9 plus $1.25 times t. Right? Heather paid $15.25. Right? That paid is going to tell us that that's where our equal sign goes. That's her total. All right, so let's set up our equation. So we know that the pizza shop charges $9. As soon as you order a pizza, it's going to cost you $9. Then we're going to add on to that the $1.25 per topping, and that's going to equal the $15.25. Now this part here, it doesn't matter the order that you write it in, whether you do 9 plus $1.25t or you do the $1.25t plus 9. That part does not really matter, but we just happen to write it this way. All right, so let's solve. So now we're going to go through and solve. We've learned how to solve these multi-step equations, so now we're just getting a little more practice with it. I'm going to start by subtracting 9 from both sides. When I do that, that will cancel out those terms. And let's see what we have left over. All right, so now I've got $1.25t equals $6.25. And my last step is to isolate that t, so I need to divide by $1.25 on both sides. Once I do that, I'm left with t equals 5. All right, we can't stop here though. All right, t equals 5, but we have to label our answer. So what does that mean? All right, well, Heather ordered 5 toppings. We're going to put our answer in a sentence, right? Make sure that your answer answers what the original question was. How many toppings did she order? Okay, so Heather ordered 5 toppings. We answered that question. And then that would be your final answer. And then, of course, we always want to make sure that we circle our answers once we're done. Okay, now I want you to try this problem on your own. Read the problem, define your variable, look for those key math words, write your equation, solve, put your answer in a sentence. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, let's take a look at example number 2. A cell phone company charges a monthly rate of $55 for unlimited text and data, and 50 cents per minute for phone calls. The bill for last month was $66. Write and solve an equation to find out how many minutes for phone calls were charged on this bill. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. Even though it doesn't have those little steps like we had written here, okay, we're doing the same thing. So we're going to start by defining our variable. So let's go back to what is it they want us to do. They want us to write and solve an equation to find out how many minutes for phone calls, okay? Find out how many minutes for phone calls were charged on this bill. So that's what we're looking for, okay? So we need to define a variable. All right, so we're gonna pick a variable. I picked M to represent the number of minutes, because that's what we need to find. All right, so let's go back up and look for our keywords. So a cell phone company charges a monthly rate of $55 for unlimited text and data and 50 cents per minute for phone calls. All right, so we've got per again, okay, which once again means we're going to multiply. And, okay, so we have a couple ands, but we're talking about this one right here. Okay, so it was $55 for unlimited text and data and 50 cents per minute. So that and means we're going to add $55 plus that 50 cents per minute. All right, and then finally we have the word was. Okay, the bill for last month was $66. So that's where our equal sign is going to go. All right, let's see what our equation looks like. So we've got our 50 cents per minute plus 55 equals 66. All right, let's go ahead and solve our equation. I didn't do this on the one up above, but I do like drawing my line through my equal sign. All right, so now to solve, we need to isolate that variable term. So I'm going to subtract 55 from both sides. And then once I do that, I am left with 0.50 m equals 11. Now, to isolate m, I'm going to divide by 0.50 on both sides, and we end up with m equals 22. All right, so now remember we want to go back, take our final answer, and write it as a sentence to answer this question. So how many minutes for phone calls were charged on this bill? 22 minutes were on this bill. And there's our answer. So the expectation is that you always write a short little sentence for your answer to ensure that you are answering what the question was. Okay, I want you to try this next one on your own. Be careful, there's an extra little part here, so you're going to have to do a little thinking on this one. All right, go ahead and pause your video now. Okay, let's go to the next page and look at our last example. We're going to follow the same steps. Jessica spent half of her weekly allowance playing arcade games. Her parents let her weed the garden for $7 to earn extra money. What is her weekly allowance if she ended with $15? All right, so let's define our variable. What is her weekly allowance? Okay, so what is her weekly allowance? That's our question. So we need a variable. So I'm just going to use X this time. Again, doesn't matter what variable you use, is Jessica's weekly allowance. All right, so let's go through our key terms. So we have half. All right, Jessica spent half of her weekly allowance playing arcade games. All right, so half of her weekly allowance. That means we're going to divide. It could also mean that we're going to multiply. We could multiply by half or divide by 2. So whenever we see half, we can take something, we can divide by 2, or we can multiply by 1/2. Then we have ended with, that's our equals. Her parents, let's see, if she ended with $15, okay, and then extra. Her parents let her weed the garden for $7 to earn extra money. All right, so there's our plus. So let's see what we have. So we have half of her weekly allowance. Okay, so it's going to be this divided by 2, okay, plus $7 to earn that extra money. Okay, if she ended with $15, so then equals 15. So there's my weekly allowance cut in half plus 7 equals 15. All right, so I'm going to draw my line. And we want to isolate this term here with the variable. Right? Even though it's division, it's still its own term. So I'm going to, whoops, where did that go? Subtract by 7 on both sides. Right? Take that out for now. Subtract by 7 on both sides. I always like to draw a line there. And when I do that, that's going to cancel out my 7s. And then it's going to end up equaling this. So now I have x over 2 equals 8. Now my next step is to isolate the x. So I have to undo that division, which means I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. Okay. When I do that, it's going to cancel out these 2's. And now I'm left with x equals 16. All right, once again, we're going to write our answer as a sentence. So 16 what? So what is her weekly allowance? Well, that's money. So we have to make sure we use a dollar sign or use the word dollars. Okay? So her weekly allowance is $16. Circle up my answer. And then I'm done. All right, so last problem for you to try on your own. You can stop the video now.